Hey there! Welcome to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. With your host, Chuck T.
Well, hey there, welcome, come on in, take a seat. This is the Middle Age Crazy Podcast, and we are the show that proves being an adult does not have to suck. We come to you on the 1st and 15th of every month, and we're helping interesting people bring their incredible stories to life. Welcome. And a big thanks to last time's guest, Jared McClurg, one of my oldest friends, told some great stories about working on TV shows. If you missed it, go back and check it out. And if you remember last time, I was really trying to hurry through the intro because I was dealing with the wife that had influenza A, practically on her deathbed, so I didn't have a whole lot of time. This week, I got a kid with influenza B, and I got a dog that has some sort of respiratory problem or virus or something. So, once again, we're going to keep it short and sweet, but I never forget the housekeeping. Find us on social media at MiddleAgePod. Give us a call on the hotline, 515-478-3412. Give us a shout out, give somebody else a shout out, tell us if you think we're awesome, tell us if you think we suck, give us some ideas for the show, whatever you want, give us a buzz, say something cool, maybe I'll put you on the show. So I'm not sure if you saw it on Twitter or not, but I was reaching out to the podcast world saying, hey, we want to connect with you people out there. If you're making podcasts, let's talk, because we want you on our show. We'd love to guest on your show, tell the world and your audience what we're all about, do some cross promotion, some branding, give you some free promotion, airspace, whatever you want. Send me an email, give me a call, shout me out on Twitter. Let's talk about it. And on to my guest, my old buddy Mike, who I met back in Arizona in 2001, 2002, who I used to work with in a very interesting office selling tools to contractors over the phone. He has a big-time hobby. It's all about rock climbing, mountaineering, hiking, a bunch of crazy stuff that takes a lot of balls that you could never get me to do. So he's got a good story to tell. And it made me think, you know what? Maybe I should start adding a little segment on the front end, Story Time with Chuck T. Because I met Mike in a very interesting situation. Like I said, I met him in Arizona back in 2001. After I'd been out of college for a year or so, on a whim, I just moved out to Phoenix with nothing planned. And I bounced around from there. Phoenix, Colorado, I lived in Minneapolis for 15 years. I'm back here in Iowa. I was actually born in Chicago. So I've been a lot of places, seen a lot of weird stuff, and met some crazy people. And maybe it's about time I start telling some stories. Because I'll tell you this, I've had a couple good jobs. I've had plenty of shitty jobs. And I've got some great stories about that. I've been fired from some good places. You know, let me think about it and I'll get something together. Because Mike and I, the place we worked at in Arizona, was fucking bonkers. I literally saw a guy shoot fireworks out of his ass in the office. So let me see what I can put together. Anyway, I could go on forever. It's time to talk to my buddy Mike. He's all about rock climbing. Let's do this!
My name's Michael Genovese. I'm 44, almost 45, going on 14 or 15 years old, and I'm in Apache Junction, Arizona, and I like to try my best to keep myself alive while I play on rocks outside.
Excellent. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited today because we're going to talk to not only one of my old friends from out west, but someone that's going to go off on a hobby of theirs, a real passion, not about what they're doing every day for work, but what they do to spend their free time. Mike, welcome to Middle Age Crazy. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Happy to have you.
Excellent.
Yeah. Happy to have you or happy to have me?
Yeah. You're keeping me on my toes already.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing really good. In the perfect world, we would be waxing old stories about selling tools to contractors on the phone, how we know each other. But that's not what we're here about today. We're here because you're the only guy I know that climbs rocks. Okay? And you're the only guy I know that climbs rocks, and you're the only guy my age that climbs rocks. So I want to talk about your passion, your outdoor passion. I know you camp, you take photography, or you do photography, but you're big into climbing some rocks. So I want to talk about that today. And I have no idea how to start the conversation except by asking, how the fuck did you get into rock climbing?
It was actually kind of funny. You know, I was hiking a lot. I had begun to lose a lot of weight. I got really overweight, and in about 2012, I started hiking just kind of obsessively, you know, going everywhere I could across Arizona, and the hiking just really wasn't, you know, doing it anymore. And I had I'd rock climbed in a rock climbing gym since the 90s. It was kind of the thing I did to exercise when I was in the service in San Diego, and there was a gym there. And, I'd been a few other places, the Phoenix Rock Gym through the 90s into the 2000s until I, got busy with the tool room really hard and then just sat down and got fat. But, on the way to, getting a healthier life, realizing, I was not getting any younger, the appeal of climbing outdoors was kind of almost, it seemed like the next level of progress,
Okay.
I'm doing this hike. This isn't hard enough anymore. I'm looking for, a little bit more of a challenge, and the appeal of rock climbing had always been there. But truth be told, I just never knew anyone. Like you said, you don't know anyone who does it. Yeah. There's a small community of people that are into, outdoor rock climbing. It's become more popular since I have been involved in it, but it's amazing. It was something that when I got involved, I met a couple guys that were on Instagram, oddly enough, that I'd been following, and I texted them a message and said, "Hey, I want to go out." And we went out and we camped the first night. My wife was, she was still my girlfriend at the time, and her boy. We all went out and we camped and we met these guys. And the following morning, we went out and we climbed, and it was immediate. Like, it just clicked. I knew that obsessively I wanted to do this, and it was actually it affected my relationship quite a bit at the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Actually. Oh yeah, dude. Like, I almost ended up not getting married because of climbing. It was just kind of, it had taken over everything I was doing. It was it. It was priority, almost number one. And
yeah, I noticed that on social media. It went from, hey, I tried this out, to, dude, I'm doing this shit. So how do you go from 0 to 60 so quickly? Did the guys that you met that first time, did they kind of take you under their wing and say, here's how you do it? Or did they just kind of wet your beak and you had to go figure it out yourself?
No, they were taking me out, man. They were taking me out, and they were taking me out on stuff that, I kind of got the express pass.
Okay.
I wasn't going out and doing easy routes. I had enough experience climbing in a gym that once I was outside, I was able to climb the routes. I was horrified. Let's be really clear.
Okay.
I have a fear of heights. I have a really bad fear of heights. And I remember, when I first started, it would laugh because I would cry. I would be so scared at the top of a route. Literal tears. Look at Michael. He's crying. Just take a picture of it.
Oh, man.
And it was worth every second of it. But they took me out for about the first year that I was climbing, and then you start moving off this way, wanting to do this and do that. Everyone has their own motivations for rock climbing and why they do it. And I guess mine at one point or another kind of took a hard left turn a couple times, actually, as far as what I wanted to do with rock climbing and how I wanted to do it. Part of it involved an injury, and then part of it involved me developing some routes with a good friend of mine and actually putting up new climbing lines, doing first ascent climbing. And once I did a lot of that, again, it changed my perspective of climbing, how I viewed it, what I valued from climbing. When I got hurt and I couldn't go out and I couldn't climb, I was depressed.
Okay.
I had this sudden wave of depression because this thing that I had over time become to identify as. I identified as a climber, and when I got injured, that was taken away from me. And I had nothing to do, and I couldn't go hiking, I couldn't go climbing, just kind of sat depressed, getting fat again, and dreading having to cut all the weight off again to get back to where I was before I got injured. I'm still working on that. I'm just now coming back from that injury. And
what was the injury?
So I blew my ankle out on a lead climb while I was climbing Pinnacle Peak. I was doing one of the summit routes on Pinnacle Peak, and it was just kind of a freak. It was a freak accident.
Where's Pinnacle Peak?
What's that?
For those that are not in
Pinnacle
Arizona, where's Pinnacle Peak?
Pinnacle Peak is in Arizona. It is in North Scottsdale, Arizona. It's got some really nice granite rock climbing.
Okay.
I was on the third pitch of climbing, so we were just about 20 feet below the summit, and freak accident, man. I just kind of pushed a little funny with my foot as I was stepping up, and there's a little piece of tissue that goes around your ankle. It's called a retinaculum. It keeps the tendon that goes right behind your ankle bone. It keeps it in there. Well, I tore mine. So that tendon that's right behind your ankle bone that you can feel when you point your feet down, that tendon came around the side of my ankle bone out to the front.
Oops.
Yep. Wow. Yep. So I fell and had to, rappel back down to my backpack, and that was it for me. And I was down for a little over a year with that injury.
No
shit.
Like
I said, Yeah, a little over a year with that. That's when the photos all kind of stopped from rock climbing and shifted for a little bit there. And over the last, 7 or 8 months, I've been getting a little bit more confident with taking myself out and climbing more consistently on my days that I do have available. And I spent some time developing a climbing crag in Queen Creek Canyon with my buddy Scott. It was kind of part of my recovery, getting back my confidence again, climbing.
Okay, well that makes sense. You want to feel confident in how your body's working before you start climbing shit, so that makes sense. Yeah,
you want it to do what you tell it to, and we're not young anymore. And that's kind of the funny thing. As an older climber starting off, my awareness of the dangers were much more keen. Okay. I'm looking at stuff, climbs are, they're all well and good. You're on a rope, but you don't really consider where you have to hike to sometimes in order to get to these climbs. They're, aren't always a parking lot right next to them. So sometimes actually the hike to get to a rock climb is actually scarier than the climb itself.
No shit. Have you ever gone far enough to where you have to camp for a night and then keep going?
Sadly, no,
okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm hoping to do a Yosemite trip one day. I'm still pretty young in the climbing, but one day now, I have climbed at night.
Oh, cool. That'd be scary.
For what that's worth. Yeah. It's actually kind of interesting climbing with a headlamp because you have darkness just everywhere. It's just black. And then you have this big circle of your world that's lit up in front of you, and that's it. You can't see below you, can't see behind you. You don't notice the exposure around you. There's no, it's just, you're right there. Everything's happy and safe in your little bubble.
Fuck that. I mean, I'm not a heights guy either. You couldn't pay me to get on one of them fucking mountains, let alone at night. So you got fucking some sack there, buddy. Oh my God, that would freak me out. Who even comes up with, hey, let's just go up at night? Why would somebody even want to do that?
So the idea behind it, we decided the group of guys that I learned how to climb with, like I said, I was on the Express Pass, man. These guys were an entertaining bunch. Safety third is definitely the motto. It's always about style and fun first, and then you'll worry about safety later. But
perfect.
It was Memorial Day weekend, if I remember correct, and the idea was we were going to go to Sedona. We were going to climb the Queen Victoria Spire, 3 pitches. It's like a little over 200 feet of climbing or something like that. And we were going to finish Queen Victoria. We were going to start climbing it at night. We were going to start climbing it at midnight. And then after that, we were going to hike back down and have breakfast. And then we were going to go climb another place over at Cathedral Rock. We were going to climb the Mace. And as it were, we rappelled off Queen Victoria at about 3:45 in the morning. I managed to grab an amazing photograph of the Milky Way next to the Queen Victoria Spire.
Cool.
And then we started drinking a bunch of beer on the way back out to the cars. And then we decided that we wanted to take a nap, and the nap ran long, and then we ended up waking up too late, and then it was like everybody was too tired, so we called it good with the one spire and never made the second one. So we bailed on the second one, but bailing is kind of an art form in climbing, so we did it with style.
You mentioned, you've said two terms several different times, spire and pitch. What's that all about? What do those exactly mean?
Okay, so for a pitch in rock climbing, say if you're going to go climbing some short walls, a single pitch climb would be a wall or a route long enough that you could slingshot the belay. So basically the rope goes all the way up to the top anchor and back down to the ground. Okay. That would be a single pitch climb.
All right, cool.
Multiple pitches. So say the route is too long for that to occur. So you're going to climb up, say you've got 200 feet of rope. Okay, so you can climb 100 feet before that rope will go all the way back down to the ground, right? Mm-hmm. So if you've got a 300-foot climb, you're going to climb up 100 feet. You'll either have anchors that are already there. If it's an established route, there will be either anchors there, or you'll have to build yourself an anchor out of your own personal gear.
Okay.
And then you'll belay the second climber up to you. So you lead the climb, placing protection as you go all the way up the 100 feet. You get there. You call down to your partner that you're at the anchors. They are on belay to follow you. They climb all the way up behind. They get to that anchor, having cleaned behind you all the gear that you placed to protect yourself on the way up. They'll remove all of that gear on the way coming up to you.
Okay.
And then that'll be the end of the first pitch. And then whoever decides they're going to lead the next pitch or the next bit of however far you have to go, they'll lead it, placing gear in there, get to the next set of anchors, and then the exact same thing happens, basically like a leapfrog, all the way until you get to the top. However many pitches it takes to get to the top is, however many pitches you're going to do.
Interesting. So you're sometimes have to depend on someone that's already gone through it and put an anchor down. Don't you worry that maybe they were shit anchors?
After climbing for a good long time, you start to know, what a good anchor looks like or should look like. You can't tell what they look like inside the rock, obviously. You can see what they look like on the outside. So there's a couple different types of climbing. You have traditional climbing, which is what myself and my friends mainly do. You're placing self-placed protection. So you've got either mechanical cams or wire nuts or some type of sling that you can place in cracks as you're climbing up the route.
Okay.
When you get to the top, again, if it's an established route, there will either be a pair of bolt anchors with hangers that you can make your anchor from, or again, you just build yourself a gear anchor and carry on with your day. And the other type of climbing you have is sport climbing, well, at least ropes climbing. Sport climbing, you're going to go out. There's bolt hangers already placed in the wall for a determined route and a line. So there's thousands of them all over the place throughout the country. Sport lines are usually going to be really well protected. They're the safer, if you want to go that term of the two, because the bolts are considered safe.
Okay.
You bring a curious question. How do you know that the bolts are safe? You don't.
So that's
you kind of, you don't.
Okay.
So a lot of the older stuff that was established in the 60s and 70s, there's some obscure routes out there that haven't been found or climbed in, 30, 40 years. And the old equipment is still on them.
Wow.
I have done a couple climbs where I've encountered old equipment, and it's scary when you get to it. And the mental break you do when you get to something like that, because you're already committed.
Yeah.
Okay. You might be in a position where you can't maybe down climb back. So up climbing is the safest way off of the rock.
Okay.
So you kind of have to take the perspective that, okay, I can't fall. I just have to climb as safely and as smart as I can. Pay attention to every hold, every smear of my foot on the rock has got to be perfect. And as soon as I can find a way to protect myself, I'm going to. And, I always carry some gear on me, even if I'm climbing a sport route, because, you never know when you're going to run into a shitty hanger or bolts missing the hanger, or, an old ego-based climb, with huge runouts in between the protection that, you could supplement the protection with some gear, and I would rather do that than, have the ego of someone that had the bolting opportunity, 20 or 30 years ago to put up the line.
Well, you bring up a good thing. Let's talk about gear, okay? Because I can't imagine this being a cheap hobby.
No.
What's it like? How'd you have to approach it first in the beginning to get gear, and how does it just kind of multiply? Because I'm assuming you just keep buying more shit, because when you get a hobby, that's what you do. Like, I have too many bass guitars. I just keep buying them.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So for me, the initial expense and continuing expenses, mostly shoes.
Okay.
Shoes are really what you're going to go through the most of. There, you're looking for the shoes I wear are about $200 a pair.
It's not too bad.
Ropes are pretty expensive. My wife just bought me a new rope. She's bought me all of my ropes, actually. I think it's so she can probably string me up and hang them with me one day if I really piss her off good. But
good idea.
Those you're looking. My new one was about $350.
Damn.
So, it is what it is. It's your life. So. And then as far as gear, if you're climbing sport, you're looking at some quick draws. It's relatively cheap to buy quick draws. That's 2 carabiners connected with a piece of nylon. That's what a quick draw is. It clips onto the anchor on the wall, and then you clip your rope to the other carabiner. That's for sport climbing. For traditional climbing, like when we're talking about placing cams or placing wire nuts or any kind of gear protection, that's really fucking expensive. The gear gets wildly expensive. I'm not even going to get into talking to you about aid climbing, and it's like, if you really want to be a gear whore, get into aid climbing and you'll be set. You'll never have enough. Your rack won't ever grow enough. So considering that we climb a lot of cracks, okay? And those cracks can be pretty consistent in size, or they can be wildly varying, or both.
Okay.
However much gear you want to place, however well you want to protect yourself as you're climbing, is how much gear you're going to really want.
Okay.
So as I'm climbing, say I'm climbing a 150 foot tall route and it's a crack, and I have 100 feet of it that's about a 2-inch crack. That means I'm going to want 100 feet worth of cams that will fit a 2-inch crack, potentially. Okay. depending on how solid or how easy the climbing is.
Okay.
And that's how you kind of judge it. You can say, well, I can climb this grade or this difficulty, this well. So you may be willing to go a little bit further in between protection, and then the higher off the ground you get, the less chance there is of hitting the ground. So you might start running it out even further and further, because, if I'm 300 feet off the ground and I'm 50 feet ran out, I'm going to take 100-foot fall. I'm still not going to hit the ground. So let's go with it.
Jesus Christ. That's an interesting way to approach the day.
Well, if it's a clean fall and, 100-foot fall is a fucking gigantic fall. I'm being a little bit dramatic with that, quite honestly, but that is the thing that you have to consider. So if I'm climbing up this and I'm placing gear as I go, however far above the protection I climb, Chuck, is how far I'm going to fall below it. So if I place a cam, clip it, I climb 15 feet and fall, I'm going to fall 30 feet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So those runouts multiply fast. So you have to be conscious. You have to be aware of it. And quite honestly, sometimes you might be in a section where you're better served to run it out through it than you are to take the extra second or two to hold yourself there to place gear. You might just run it out to a ledge that you'll actually be able to stand on rather than, stopping, holding yourself, throwing a quick cam in there, reaching down, fumble fucking for the rope, trying to clip, missing the clip, pulling the rope up to your teeth, grabbing it in your teeth, reaching down, grabbing another full arm length of the rope, trying to clip it, and now you're fucking pumped, your hands are greased, and you peel off and you fall even further because you pulled up all this fucking extra rope. So it's like, just fucking run it out, get to the fucking shelf above you. It's a constant decision making. It's constant problem solving. It's literally, how can I keep myself alive? How can I solve this problem? How can I get up this wall through this section and protect it and be okay? And you do all of this under the duress of the fact that you could fall just about any time.
Yeah, what's the main draw to it? Is it the adrenaline that you're literally taking your life in your own hands, or is it the constant brain stimulation of I have to solve these problems as I go up this rock or I'm dead?
Mostly the brain stimulation, and quite honestly, it's the calm.
Okay.
Once you've started to climb quite a bit, your fear of trusting your protection kind of goes away. You begin to realize, okay, I can do this safely. I can do this confidently, and it actually behooves me to confidently execute these movements. Anybody that's done any kind of sport will tell you, if you question or you double think what you're doing in any sport, you're going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
You execute, you do it without thinking. And as soon as you can start to climb without thinking of all of the things that could go wrong, which are quite honestly, the percentage of people that die rock climbing due to a gear failure is quite nominal.
Okay.
The 80% of death on rock climbing or mountaineering, I might be mistaken. You'll probably get grilled for this in comments because I could be wrong. The stats change from year to year, but I believe what I had once heard was 80% of accidents in mountaineering, rock climbing, and deaths are happening on rappel.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
Yes. It's not typically due to a gear failure. Yes, gear can blow out of the wall on incidences, but it's typically not because of the gear being defective. It's typically because of the person that put gear. It's user error. If you don't put a cam in to rock well, if you're not paying attention and you just blindly throw a cam in and, it's not seated well, it's not going to do its job right. If you throw it into a chunk of fragile rock that, if it sounds hollow, it's probably going to blow. You have to be mindful. And once you do all of these things in one cohesive action and activity where you can mindfully get yourself and establish, what you're okay with as far as risk versus, not even reward, risk versus percentage of you failing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you climb enough terrain that is the same type of skill level terrain. You can look at something and see it and be like, I'm not going to fall off of that.
Okay.
I'm not. Like, at worst, I'm going to fucking slide a little bit maybe. Or like it could be low angle, you might slide back. If it's vertical and it's got lots of great holds, like you would almost have to fucking try to fall off of it. If you've ever been to a rock gym, you see, these giant holds for the little kids. They call them jugs. Man, some walls there's just these huge jugs, and there's shelves and ledges, and there's tons of things to hold on all around you. And you see all of these things that you can hold on to. And you do. Do you remember when we were kids and we used to go play on jungle gyms?
Oh, yeah, totally.
And you would walk across the top of the jungle gym.
Mm-hmm.
You never questioned it.
There's always someone doing something stupid on it, yeah.
But you didn't question it. And you know what? You could do it back and forth. You could do laps up and over the top of it. And you didn't question it because you knew your body would do it. And you weren't polluted. You weren't polluted with a whole lifetime of getting hurt fucking off doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
To realize that, there is an inherent danger to this. So once you can wrap your head around the inherent danger that accompanies rock climbing, and you learn how to do it well enough that you can look at a wall, any wall, whether it's established route or not, any wall, you can look at it and be like, I can climb that.
How long did it take?
Then,
how long did it take you to get to that point where you're like, I have the confidence, I'm not worrying about the bullshit?
honestly, I'm kind of still there, dude.
Okay.
Like, genuinely, I'm still there. Like, fear is kind of one of those things where you look at something, and I climb scared. I think a lot of climbers climb scared. It's one of the things I personally that draws me to it. It's that fear, you know. It's how much do I let my mind control me versus how much can I really focus? And I think the draw that really brought me to it, and I came back to it before, is the focus that comes along with climbing. You know, there's nothing else. Your problems, your debt, your mistakes that you've made in your life that you're depressed about, your depression, your anxiety, your PTSD, all of it just kind of goes away because there's no time for it. All there's time for is this next 30 or 40 feet, figuring out how to get a decent bit of protection in, because that last piece was kind of manky, and if you fall on it, it might slow you down, but it might blow too. So there's no time for, you know, all of the other parts of life. And I think that it becomes almost a meditation. It almost becomes zenful. It becomes an escape. You know, I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I've become sober through a lot of things, and climbing is probably one of the best things I've really ever been addicted to. And it's definitely the healthiest addiction I've had. But honestly, the high is better than, you know, different type of high. It's you know, at my age, a lot of the stuff I do, you know, sometimes it's a personal feeling of self-satisfaction. I was never really, I don't know, into sports or shit. So
okay,
helmet sports always were attractive to me. I skateboarded. I'd like to do what the fuck I want.
No, but I can totally get that, and I could see the just thinking, like, no matter what walk of life you're from, if you're our age, mid-40s, and you got a wife and couple of ankle biters and a job, all that crap, I could see how heading out on the mountain for the day could be a nice way to get away from everything. Because like you said, you can't really think about anything else, because if you fuck up too bad, you're really screwed. So that's got to be an interesting approach to, I guess, I hate to say midlife crisis, but I think we've all gone through it. Like me, you know, a couple of years ago, I grew my hair out and got a bunch of tattoos. All right, that was my midlife crisis. It was cheaper than a Porsche and safer than a hooker, right?
Yeah.
But do you think this is?
Yeah, I saw those pictures. So you looked like it looked good on you. The hippie cut. I like that.
Oh, I loved it too, but it got a little out of hand.
I always wanted long hair, but my hair just kind of grows out. It doesn't grow long. It just grows out like woolly mammoth style.
Yeah, that's the.
I end up looking like Reggie. What's that cat's name?
Reggie.
Can't remember that dude's name. Reggie Watts.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, the comedian guy. Yes, I can tell you though, that's the only time I've ever done the super long hair. Like, I didn't cut it for about 3 years, and it was cool, but it got a little out of control. But like I was saying, was this a good way for you to, like, the second half of life, kind of like, I'm going to get my shit even more together, this is the focus? Because it seemed like to me, once you started doing the rock climbing stuff, it just seemed like a lot was changing and you had a much more positive, like, approach to things.
Yeah. And, you know, climbing helps with anxiety. Climbing helps with depression. It helps, you know, kind of channel where I want my energy to be. And as far as, you know, kind of getting my life while coming up on 45, after I got injured, the priorities really kind of, even through climbing, you know, up and before I blew my ankle out, you know, a lot of the longer trips, you know, a lot of the really sketchy, fucked up trips where, you know, you start really just wanting to go home, questioning like, why am I here? You know, I've got a wife, I've got a family at home. They just want to be with me, and you know, I'm out here, and what the fuck am I doing? And it's kind of put a lot of my priorities into perspective. You know, again, my priority and my motivation for rock climbing has changed a few times.
Well, that's cool.
And seeing how much my life was kind of consumed by it when I stopped for a while it was eye-opening. You know, I knew I'm like I said, I'm an addict, you know, and it was like any other drug. I wanted to consume it more and more and more and more and more and more. And, you know, it's not like chasing that hit, because that hit's just as good as the first one. Every one of them. Every single one of them.
That's the shitty part.
That's the worst part, man. And that's what keeps you coming back for more every time, because it's, you know, it's not like the other stuff where you kind of just, it just kind of loses its effect on you. I mean, it kind of becomes normal. Like some parts of it normalize the things that, you know, regular people would look at, you know, us hiking on, you know, without ropes to be like, you guys are fucking nuts. But it's just so normal because, you know, you recognize, all right, I'm fine on this terrain. It's not that steep. I'm not going to fall over. It's fine. Just whatever. Carry on. Yeah.
I was going to say, but the family's starting to gotten a little involved, right? I swear I've seen some pics of your wife hiking and climbing with you, right?
My wife hikes with me all the time. She does not climb with me.
Okay.
I have one picture of her. I got one picture of her in a harness. Her ass looks amazing in it, and that's about the end of that.
Okay.
But my stepson has been recently, again, climbing a little bit more frequently with me. It's kind of rad. His first day rock climbing outdoors was my first day rock climbing outdoors.
Oh, wow.
At least on a rope.
Oh, yeah.
Doing it for real.
Because you said you guys all went and met those dudes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Spencer and Corey all had him on a rope for, you know, the first couple years. He was coming out. The kid was coming out on climbing trips. You know, he at 5.5, 6 years old, he was going out and he was doing, you know, 2 or 3 day weekend camping with a bunch of dirtbag rock climbers, and
cool.
He was learning how to slack. You know, I think he was like 7.5 or 8. No, it was about 7.5. He was slacklining, you know, at Paradise Forks, camping with us up in Williams, Arizona, at like midnight. You know, just
wow.
He's had a really cool kind of. I'm kind of jealous of it. You know, I'm kind of jealous of his childhood because he's getting exposed to some stuff. It's really cool, really early.
Well, it seems like if he's getting involved that early, he's got to at least have somewhat of a set on him. If he's like, yeah, I'll go try this shit out.
Sure. I mean, I think, well, he was 6 years old, trying to do, you know, some Hitchcock Pinnacle down in Tucson on Mount Lemmon. And then, you know, he was like 7 years old. He was doing granite slab routes out at Pinnacle Peak. You know, he's 10 years old now, and he's climbing, you know, slab routes that are hard for some adults out in the McDowell Mountains in Scottsdale. Wow. And it's so cool to like think of, you know, if he does grab onto it, how far he could take it, or even if he doesn't grab onto it. I think watching what it does for his self-confidence, you know, climbing is one thing, man. It'll show you who you are, you know, it'll show you what you're really afraid of. And I've taught a lot of new climbers recently, and I've actually kind of found that I really enjoy teaching new climbers because, you know, everything you teach, you just reinstills it in yourself.
Yeah.
Wow. Just kind of watching that new growth and watching people kind of deal with fear, and everyone's, you know, kind of afraid of something else. And I always ask people if they're getting really, you know, kind of, you can tell when people are getting skeeved out on a rope, you know, what are you afraid of? And a lot of time people, they'll be, I'm fucking just, I just want to come down. I'm like, no. I'm not asking you insultingly, what are you afraid of? I'm fucking genuinely asking you, what is your fear? Are you like, what is it that you're afraid of is going to happen? Talk to me about that so that we can rationalize it, because quite genuinely, fear is kind of a made up emotion. You're anticipating something that's going to happen that's not gonna.
Yeah.
Like, I'm afraid the rope's going to break. Bro, the rope's not going to break. Just fucking climb on.
Yeah.
I'll have people let go of the wall and bounce on it, 3 feet off the ground. Just put all your weight on the rope. We're right here. Just put all your weight on the rope. And then they do it. And then they realize, okay, this rope will hold me. And then just slowly over time, they begin to have the confidence of the rope will do its job, so they forget about the rope pretty much. This is when you're learning on a top rope and everything. The rope goes up to the top, comes all the way back down. If you fall, you're not going anywhere. You're just dangling there.
Okay.
So once those people kind of get past that, unless you're lead climbing, you're really not going to fall anywhere at all. But if you're following someone, even if you fall, if you pop off, you're just dangling there. You're going to fall as much slack as in the system, and that's it. So it's that establishing confidence thing.
When you want to go out with your crew or whatever, how do you go about picking a spot?
So lately, I've been kind of working on one particular climb at Pinnacle Peak up in Scottsdale. But overall, if you're kind of, just depends on what you're into. There's certain crags that are good at certain times of year or certain times of day. If I'm mostly right now, I don't want to do any multi-pitch climbing. I'm trying to kind of just work my confidence back.
Okay.
Climbing is a constant. Like I said, for me, climbing is more mental.
Okay.
The physical part of rock climbing to me is kind of, I don't want to say easy, but it's the easy part of rock climbing.
Well,
the actual challenge of rock climbing is the mental game. It's keeping your shit together, and I have a hard time keeping my shit together in day-to-day life. So
me too.
Putting myself putting myself into a position where I am under the potential of a fatal fall or something like that, it just tends to push you into a much more focused level, and that's kind of what I chase.
Okay.
But getting the confidence. So I'm picking, for me, getting confidence, I'm picking a lot of single pitch stuff, things that I don't have to worry about, the head game 2 or 3 pitches up, breaking down or anything like that. I can easily get off of the wall. I can bail easy.
Hey,
I can bail easy, man.
Hey, you got to have a plan, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Are you mostly climbing in Arizona, or do you get out of state much?
Nah, man, I'm pretty much just climbing in Arizona. The only out-of-state climbing I have done was I took a trip to Joshua Tree National Park a couple years ago for New Year's with my buddy Jared and Shelby and my wife Renee, and that was absolutely amazing. Joshua Tree was just magical. I can't get back there soon enough, quite honestly. The rock quality was just some of the coolest shit I've ever climbed on, and it's nothing really tall. It's pretty much all single pitch climbing. It really kind of suits my style. There's a lot of cracks. Again, it's the type of climbing I like. There's a lot of different types of or disciplines of rock climbing, and cracks and then off-width, so an off-width crack is not quite hands or fingers or fists. It's an off-width. It doesn't fit you. So you might be doing like an arm bar inside the crack or a chicken wing, or you might have your whole leg inside the crack. Half your body might be inside the crack. Your whole body, ultimately, if it gets inside the crack, it becomes a squeezed chimney. I like that kind of climbing. I like physical climbing. There's kind of a grit to it. It's dirty. It's hard. It ain't pretty, man. And it suits me. It's very blue collar.
How is it navigating the fucking weather in Arizona? Because, I mean, it gets so balls hot. I remember from living there when it get like at 115 and shit. So do you find you got to go out really early or really late during the summer? Do you even not fuck with summer? How do you approach it based on your nutty weather out there?
So Arizona rock climbing in the summertime, you're either going to get out really early, like pre-dawn, hike in before the sun's even up so that you can start climbing before it gets nuclear hot, or you drive up north.
Okay.
And that seems to be the most common. I got married in northern Arizona in the woods on a grassy knoll. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, no, but you go northern Arizona, you go rock climbing there. You'll be able to get into Flagstaff. You can go, so you got the San Francisco Peaks, or you could dip down to southern Arizona, hit Mount Lemmon. You know, Mount Lemmon's crazy because the bottom you, of course, have Sonoran Desert. And at the top of Mount Lemmon, you know, your alpine level, you're above 9,000 feet. So it's
wow,
it's pretty crazy. Yeah. So it's nice and cool up there. You can make it work. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit.
Okay. Is that your bumper sticker?
No, my bumper sticker says, "But did you die?"
No, I like that too. I remember when I moved to Arizona, when I drove down from Iowa and I came in through Flagstaff, it was early April and it was snowing. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I had no idea that there was a mountain in northern Arizona. I had no idea even that was there. On my way to a state I was moving to. It was crazy.
That mountain would have been, I believe, about the same height as Mount Everest before Snowball blew the side out.
Oh, wow. No shit.
Yeah, if you look at the angle of the San Francisco Peaks, the slopes, they estimate at least that it would have been close to about 20,000 feet.
Holy balls!
Before the caldera blew out Snowball.
Man, that's big. Tell me a story. We got a little bit more time left. Tell me a story about your toughest climb.
Toughest, scariest, or
what was the okay? Let's put it this way. Tell me about the one of the climbs you were like, why the fuck am I doing this?
So, I think one of the biggest why the fuck am I doing this wasn't on the climb per se. My buddy Corey was teaching me how to rappel. This is when I first started rock climbing. I was afraid to rappel, so they were tired of lowering me off of all of these trad routes and shit. So they were like, all right, Michael, you got to learn how to rappel. So Corey decided he's going to take me out to go canyoneering,
okay,
which is descending from the top down of a canyon.
Fuck.
So you hike up. Yeah, right. It's
Fuck.
brutal. You either drive or hike up to the top, and you descend through the canyon via ropes. Anyway, I digress. So my scariest moment was on my trip doing Barney Springs Canyon in the Secret Mountain Wilderness in Sedona, Arizona. We did 13 rappels to get through this canyon. I think our total mileage logged was 1.9 miles, and it was a total of 9.5 hours that it had taken us to do this.
Oh, Jesus.
And so the why the fuck am I here part, as we're coming up. So you go all the way through the canyon on rope, you're rappelling down, happy, fun, joy. Everything's exciting and fun. And then you're at the bottom of the canyon. So this particular canyon, we had to hike back up from West Fork, Sedona, in the Secret Mountain Wilderness, all the way back up to the ridgeline of a mountain behind it, some 4,000 feet above us. Yeah. Wow. No trail.
For real? Just figure it out?
Yeah, no. No trail. We had there's a website called Rope Wiki that gives all this information on canyoneering and shit, and we had bad beta. Okay, the beta we had received on this sneak route to hike out, I don't know if it was bad beta or if Corey fucked up and we took a wrong turn or what, but we ended up climbing up this wall that was rock climbing. I mean, so this is rock climbing for sure. Mm-hmm. He actually built an anchor above where I was so that he could belay me up to him because he free soloed this 50-foot wall. As I'm climbing up to him, one of the first things that he had stood on broke off under my weight climbing up to him and tumbled. And I get up to him. Shit's getting so steep that it's like a fucking treadmill, you know. I'm walking forward and rock is breaking and sliding behind me. I've got fucking tears in my eye, kind of sobbing to myself softly. I'm dirty. I'm wet. I've been through a canyon. I've just fucking hiked up the side of a mountain a couple thousand feet through fucking burned out forest and woods, climbing over, like, knocked over trees that are all charred from forest fires. Like, I'm fucking disgusting at this point, Chuck. And I'm crying, and I look at Corey, and I'm like, why the fuck are we here? I just want to go home. I just want to go home to my Renee. And he looks at me and goes, are you crying? I'm like, yes. And he's like, why are you crying? We're almost there. He's like, it's okay. We're almost there. I'm like, I don't want to be here. and then like 45 minutes of hiking later, we hit the ridge line, and there was my Jeep, and the sun was setting, and I was supposed to be home like a couple hours ago at this point, you know. Renee and I hadn't gotten married yet at this point. She didn't realize how fucking awful time was going to be on adventuring, you know. You can't set time. You can't go on an adventure and have anywhere to be later.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Shit comes up, dude. You know.
Yeah.
Ropes get stuck. All kinds of things can happen. You know, you might pull your rappel rope. Rope gets stuck, and now you got to figure it out. And that's the same thing. You know, climbing. You know, mental shit. You just got to deal with it and figure it out.
Well, what's next?
Don't die.
Yeah, don't die. Well, what's your next goal, man? So, I mean, what's the big next goal you want to achieve?
Now, there's a couple of climbs that I'd like to do before I turn 45.
Okay.
Just local ones, you know, nothing huge, you know, just their personal goals. Honestly, a lot of climbing is just that. It's a competition with myself, you know. I'm not competing with anybody else, you know. This isn't about ego. This isn't about showing how big my balls are to the world. This isn't about anything of that. It's literally about me finding this thing that I can do that I'm kind of good at. I'm not great at it, but I'm kind of good at it, and it makes me focus. It makes me feel good about myself. It makes me confident, you know. Makes me confident again in my body, and keeps me relatively healthy. From here, I want to continue to kind of remain injury free and be able to keep climbing. I just want to be able to keep climbing and having fun doing it. Hopefully eventually get on to doing something, you know, a little bit taller and longer at Yosemite maybe, or do some cool stuff in Sedona. But I just honestly, after being out of it for a while and seeing what it's like not being able to, I just want to stay as injury free as I can and be able to keep climbing as old as I can, as long as my body will allow it. That's my goal.
Well, I think that's a pretty sensible goal, especially since we ain't getting any younger. But
oh, dude, like, it's fucking hard to recover.
Yeah, I could only imagine. Like, a buddy of mine is a dean of students. I think he's a dean of students or an athletic director, something like that. He works at a high school, and he plays basketball in the morning, and he tore his Achilles playing basketball today, like not even doing anything, like just walking from one end of the floor to the other. So I'm just like, fuck, man.
Yeah, when it goes out, it goes out.
The body's falling apart.
Just like, yep, I'm not doing it no more. Fuck you.
Oh, it's amazing.
I don't like your agenda.
Oh my God! Well, I got to give it up to you, Mike, because you got some balls to be getting up there on the rocks, and you're a hell of a storyteller. That's why I wanted to get you on the show today. So I really appreciate you coming on. We might have to have you back because you're also a massage therapist, and you got into that a little later in life, and you said you got some good stories for that too. So are you up for coming back and talking massages?
I think I might be. It would be a little bit of fun.
All right, cool. Thanks again for stopping by. I really appreciate it. And it was great talking to you. It's been like, what, fucking almost 20 years, so.
When did you leave Arizona?
2002.
2002. Oh my God, 18 years.
Yeah, it's been a long fucking time, man. So once again, I really appreciate you stopping by, Mike. You know, maybe one time we'll do a side deal where we'll tell some old war stories from when we used to sell tools.
Absolutely.
Thanks again. We'll be in touch, and I appreciate it. You have a good one, man.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. Brought to you by moonsaltmusic.info. Underground and independent hip-hop for the old heads. Free downloads available now. All show inquiries can be sent to middleagecrazypod@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Middle Age Pod. Call us at 515-478-3412. Ask for Janice. Middle Age Crazy is a Greg Valentine and Clarence J. Washington production.